welcome to another episode of Scarfey Talks Premier League, and it's an action-packed one. So this week we're talking Game Week 33, which has all happened, which is the weekend's games plus a few extra thrown in there midweek, which has always provided action. Never could be a quiet midweek Premier League. So full of games, and I've got a fantastic panel which is going to deliver absolutely like the football did over the course of the last few days. So let's introduce them one by one. I'm going to go around and get names and the club so that people support. Firstly, Ollie, great to have you back on. It's been a few weeks, and regular here. Remind people what team you support.
Yeah, I'm a massive Bournemouth fan. I've enjoyed the fact that we played 2 game weeks. Or 2 games in a game week, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster. Especially yesterday, I wasn't happy yesterday, to be honest with you. But that's how football is. That is the joys of a football fan. But no, I'm looking forward to getting into it because I have quite a lot to say about quite a few games, actually, not even just ours. It was an action-packed week, so I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. We've got a second in there. Yeah, we've got quite a lot going. So plenty as always to discuss. Never a quiet week here. Ollie, thank you very much. Another regular on the Scarfey Talks Premier League podcast then in Sophie. So Sophie, to remind people who you support, and I hope you keep them well.
Thank you so much again for having me on. I'm really looking forward to today's show. And yeah, I support Arsenal.
There we go. Fantastic stuff. I won't give my opinion as a Spurs fan, but there we go. We'll leave it at that. But again, also action-packed for Arsenal. Sophie, thank you very much. We have got 2 debuts then on the Scarfey Talks Premier League podcast. Firstly, Jordan, who comes on the Scarfey Spurs Talk, my main podcast, very regularly. We talk Tottenham most weeks. So, Jordan, thank you for all your time that you give me over there. It's great to have you on this podcast for the first time. How you doing, my friend? And again, tell people who you support. I've just kind of given it away there.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for having me, Harry. Yeah, looking forward to it. It'd be a little bit of a welcome break, not having to talk about how bad Spurs are. So, be nice to put the energy into someone else for a little bit. So, it'd be good.
Absolutely. Well, we'll still sneak Tottenham in, I'm sure, quite a few times. But you're right. Not as much as usual. Jordan, thank you very much. And Charles, it's fantastic to have you on for your debut. Thank you so much for giving me your time. Tell people what club you support, and I hope you're well, mate.
Yeah, doing well. Thank you guys for having me. First time on. I am a United fan, so only 40 games this season. But yeah, excited to speak about other games as well.
It should be good, absolutely. And it's to talk about roller coaster. We've been action packed. It's certainly been that for United. Been through more than one manager and ups and downs for sure. Thank you very much for joining us and giving me your time. Let's crack straight into it then. The first game, and I'm hyping up all this game week, so I hate to start in this way. In a way, no disrespect to either of these teams, but the scoreline more than anything. Brentford 0, Fulham 0 was the first game of the weekend. Ollie, I'll start with you. Nothing to split the 2 teams in this London derby. Do you think it under-delivered as a whole? And it's another draw for Brentford once again.
I think it did. It was I thought they'd go at each other a little bit more, being a bit of a derby, and I think both of the teams, in terms of fan-wise, especially, they like to kind of want to win this kind of game. And actually, in the past couple of years, they've had a lot of interesting games, a lot of like 3-2s, 3-3s, or somewhere around that kind of scoreline. And I think they both, to a degree, played well quite defensively. I thought, they didn't really have many chances between them. I thought the first half was pretty dire. It was quite an anti-climax, as they say. I think we were expecting a lot more and nothing really happened of it. But I think, like Brentford recently, I think their goal scoring form has kind of dropped a little compared to what it was at a certain point in the season. And they aren't as prolific in goal scoring as they have been. Defensively wise, I think recently they've been pretty good. Especially at home, I think they've managed to drill in a lot of getting a lot of clean sheets and prevent a lot more goals than they have done from a Brentford side of view. But obviously scoring wise isn't as good. But I think they'd see that as a point closer to getting where they want to be. They're in a good position, so it isn't the worst kind of result in the world for them. And I think elsewise for Fulham, I think it's a similar kind of position where they're in. I think they'd look for a point. They would have taken one with how Brentford have been good this recently. And I think that's not the worst result in the world, but I think I think it was a game where they just cancelled each other out. Good defenses, not so good attacking.
100%. Ollie, thank you. And Charles, if I can come to you, would you say this is kind of a bad result, really, for both in terms of both trying to chase European football, particularly Brentford? And if anything, do you think that Brentford deserved it more? They seem to create majority of the chances.
I'd say ultimately, I think it just sums up the game. Kind of summed up Premier League football. To be fair, I think very, very boring, very a bit cagey defenses being on top, as was said previously. I think the worst thing was the fact that this was a 12:30 kickoff, wasn't it, on televised on TV?
Yeah.
And everyone, like, with the utmost respect, everyone had to both teams. Everyone had to kind of watch a 0-0. I think it kind of sums up where Premier League football is, where there's not a lot of attacking talent on display. As I think someone did put in a comment, Leno did make a very, very good save. I think I tuned in quite late to the game, so second half, and I did see Leno make a very, very good save in the second half. But other than that, I think maybe Harry Wilson had a half chance, but there wasn't a lot in the game. So I think probably a draw was the right result. I wouldn't say either team deserved to get the win, in my opinion.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And Barney is a Fulham fan, so he's giving his thoughts here, saying, as for Europe, I think unfortunately we haven't got enough about us to make that step yet. Anyway, to a side who can make Europe. Jordan, can I ask you on that? Fulham, do you think they haven't quite got enough for Europe? They, every time they seem to go on a little bit of a run, they have a result like this. It isn't disastrous, but you think they're not really trying to look to win the game, and ultimately it looked like they went to get drawn. To be fair, they did get that though.
Yeah, and listen, to be fair, Brentford away for Fulham, I don't think it's the worst result they could have got. I was only just looking at the table there. There's actually 3 points in between them, and as you say, both chasing for Europe. You sort of, I guess, from a neutral point of view, would have hoped that one of them would have gone for a little bit more, and maybe, the jeopardy of the game being that them European places and sort of chasing that. But given, the tightness of the two teams, I think it's probably a better result for Fulham than it is for Brentford, given it's obviously at Brentford and stuff. But as what you're saying is, do they have enough to really push on for that European place? I feel like Fulham's an interesting one where, especially recently, they've sort of solidified themselves as that sort of mid-table club that they are. And I think they've probably got 2 or 3 years before they can start really pushing into them Europa. So obviously now you're getting like 7 English teams in European competition. So there's definitely a lot more opportunity for them to do it. And I really don't think they're that far off, especially under Marco Silva. Obviously, probably losing Harry Wilson on free. But I think if they can have a good window, good couple windows, maybe 2 or 3, then I think they're definitely there or thereabouts, considering, Bournemouth and Brentford themselves as well are definitely challenging for Europe. So I think they're quite close to it, but definitely maybe not this season.
Okay, thank you very much. And so if you can ask you about the next one, because I don't think there's too much to add to the first game. Leeds 3, Wolves 0. Huge result, wasn't that, for Leeds? And do you think now that they're in a position where they're looking incredibly strong, we'll get onto it, but after this game, they go and get another point. But this win put them up to 39 before they even got onto 40 later than that. They're in a very comfortable position, aren't they, Leeds? And also, away from the Premier League, they're doing very well as well.
Yeah, I think Leeds definitely needed to pick up a few wins, because I know they were drawing quite a few games, and I think a lot of us probably knew they weren't going to get relegated in the position, but they were not too far from the bottom, so they're doing really good this season. I think they're doing a lot better than what people expected, and I mean, getting a comfortable win against Wolves, and I mean, Wolves isn't always easy. I know they've been relegated, but I think that's a good win for Leeds. And like I said, Leeds are doing really good at the minute, and I think they've got a lot of confidence right now.
Yeah, they certainly have, Sophie. Thank you very much. Ollie, coming to you though, for Wolves, was this kind of the nail in the coffin and what's been kind of a miserable week or so after getting thumped 4-0 in the end by West Ham? That was uncomfortable for them. And also you surprised a little bit, because I think from now to the end of the season, looking at it a few weeks ago, people would have said Wolves have the easier fixtures, and they've done really well in these hard games, against Liverpool, against Arsenal. Then when it's come to West Ham and Leeds, without any disrespect, what would seem easier games, they've really fallen.
I think their momentum was going to end eventually. I don't think they were going to hold on for forever to get all these good results that they've been getting earlier on in the year. Eventually the wheels were going to fall off and they were going to just dive straight into the Championship. They were too far adrift to have to get back into a good position. I think, you know, their team on paper wouldn't suggest them being in this position in the first place, but unfortunately, due to what happened at the start of the season, and where at the start of Rob Edwards' reign it still wasn't working out until a certain point, they were too far in it, and that meant that they had no escape from where they were. And I think the good run of form was just a temporary measure until things were going to go wrong again, and that's why they're in 20th place, I'm afraid. But I think like it was all too little too late anyway, and this was the final game for them to be able to pretty much stay up, and now they're officially down. I think they are now focusing on what's next. I think this game was kind of part of that, really. They are just trying to keep in a bit of an effort to put in some performances before they have to rebuild in the summer.
Ollie, thank you. And Jordan, I ask you about this game. Of course, as a Spurs fan, you'd be watching Leeds, thinking about the relegation battle. Do you now think the Leeds are okay? And like I said, it's now different. They have even more, but at the time, 39, and there's a kind of big gap now from them to where Tottenham Hotspur are. So you forgetting about Leeds now. As a Tottenham fan, focusing on Forest and in particular West Ham. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think it's Forest and West Ham from our point of view now. We're literally the same distance to Leeds as to Leeds our European spot, which I guess speaks to the actual, the kind of conjuncture and the kind of congestion in the Premier League this season, especially. But they're definitely, I think they're out of the woods now. I think we'll struggle against them. I also think we're going to struggle against Wolves, but that's probably one for a Spurs podcast itself. But yeah, I think they're pretty safe and out of the zone now. I think maybe one more win out of their next four could really guarantee it for them. And overall, considering how close Daniel Farke was to being sacked, to sort of turn it around now and find the form that they are in, it's a credit to them, really.
Absolutely. And Charles, can I ask you about that? How much credit does Daniel Farke deserve, both in terms of what they managed to do in the Cup, in the FA Cup, as well as in the Premier League? They're in a really nice position, aren't they, now, where they're probably safe in the Premier League, so they can focus a little bit more away from the Premier League.
Yeah, I think they're a good side. They beat us, was it the Monday night, maybe last week, and I think they play very, very good football. I think, was it earlier in the season, he changed from a 4 back to a back 5, and he got the wing backs involved, and he started, I think from that change, he started playing some good football, started being a lot more solid. The likes of, I think, Tanaka, when he played at Old Trafford, he was very, very good. So I think they actually have a good squad there, and it kind of shows in the FA Cup. Obviously, they're in a cup semi-final. I think the change from the manager has kind of helped the squad a lot to get them up there, the position they were in, and the players as well have actually started to perform. So good on them.
Absolutely that. Good on them. I agree with that. Thank you very much. And Ollie, of course, ask you as a Bournemouth fan about the next one. Newcastle 1, Bournemouth 2. Big result for you, taking advantage, some would say, of Newcastle's struggles at the moment. What did you think of the performance? Of course, going to James's Park is a big result, because generally across the years they have some very strong form at home.
Yeah, I think it was a good result for us. I think as it was going, I think we were the favourites to win that, even if it was at St James's Park. They are, as how people say they are at the moment. They were just really, really poor, toothless in attack. There's nothing really going for them going forward. There's something going on, and there's something wrong with them at the moment, I'd say, for Newcastle, because when they ended up scoring that goal and it was allowed, it was a bit of a shock that they actually scored, because they, up to that point, they hadn't really done anything. And obviously over the other however many minutes, we were controlling the game, and by half time we should have been winning by more at that point. Really, we should have been well in front, and we should have been controlling the game by 2 or 3-0, where it wouldn't have even mattered if they scored, really. But that was on us for not putting away those chances. But when they scored, it was almost like we've just got to play the same way and we'll score again. And we happened to score that winner in the end. A bit of a close one, but really, I think the score didn't actually reflect how dominant we were in the game. And I think that really is a good summary of where Newcastle are at the moment. They weren't good at all. It's a bit of a worry for them, but obviously, luckily, they don't have to worry about relegation now pretty much because they are safe. I'm not sure if they're mathematically safe, but they are pretty much safe. So it's not really much of a worry for them now, but they're not in a good position. I think they need a bit of a rebuild in the summer. I think I think that a couple of their players aren't really too interested in being in the club potentially, and also they need to sign more players. They just don't have a good enough squad to compete in some of these games when they do get some injuries, which happen quite frequently. But it shows where we are in comparison to them. I think we're a well-drilled side at the minute. We know what we're doing. The players are very motivated to win games. We play in a right way, and even with the news of Andoni leaving recently, I don't think it's affected anything on the pitch, which is the most important thing, because you never know what's going to happen with that kind of news. So that's the most important thing to me. And the most important thing is we got 3 points, but we could have scored more. Very dominant. Happy with that.
I surely do appreciate it, and you're going on an incredible run at the moment. Thank you. Sophie, coming to you. I know that previously on this podcast, me and you, we've spoken about Newcastle, their struggles, and Eddie Howe, but it feels like they've now kind of reached a real low. Do you think he could be under real pressure? And I mean, it seems obvious now to say that he would probably stay in charge for the end of the year with only 5 games to go. But do you think there should be a conversation in the summer about him continuing after this season?
Yeah, I think so, because I think this season they have really struggled, and like the 14th at the minute, and I definitely think they'll stay up. I don't think they're going to get relegated. I don't think they need to worry about that. But if you look at the other seasons where they've got that Europe spot, they've got Champions League, they've been sort of been in that area, they have really declined quite a lot. So I think it's definitely worth talking about it. I'm not sure if he would go. I don't really see him leaving. I feel like he wants to rebuild in the summer and get more players in, but this season they've been really poor. I mean, especially in the attack, they have really struggled. And again, another game where they don't pick up those 3 points. So I think it's definitely worth having the conversation, because they've not had a great season at all.
100%. Thank you very much. Do appreciate it. Charles, anything to add on this game? And it feels like a big result for Bournemouth and kind of keeping their European hypes alive and ultimately just building on the last few weeks they've had, which have been very positive.
Yeah, quickly, just on Newcastle, and the question you kind of posed to Sophie about Eddie Howe, I think he's probably ran his race at the club, and might be a bit biased because I actually think he should be in the race for the United job. But I think he's done a very good job at Newcastle, and I think on the weekend, I believe he said something in his presser about he's only got to play players that want to be there, which was one of the reasons why Gordon was left out. So I think with everything that's actually happening at the club, and the fact with PSR and everything, and he's just gone and lost his best player the year before. He's won the trophy. He's got Champions League football twice now. I think he's ran his race at the club, and it could probably be the end of the road for him at Newcastle. And I don't think it would be a thing of, oh, he's done bad. I think a lot of Newcastle fans would actually be quite happy with the job he's done. And in terms of Bournemouth, I think Bournemouth once again are very, very top, very, very good side. And is it now 13 games unbeaten, Ollie, that you guys are? Yeah, so 13 games.
I think it might be 14 now. But
14 now, yeah.
I think it's 13 at that point. I to be honest with you, I'm not keeping track, but I think it's 14 now.
Yeah. And if I'm right, are you 6th or you 5th? But you're in and around the European spots, aren't you?
7th, which I think is Europe.
Yes, I think top job from being done by Iriola. I think once again, very, very good squad that they have. I think in terms of when I was watching them against Arsenal, replacing Kirkes with the likes of Truffert, and I think Tyler Adams has also had a very, very good season as well. I think he was injured earlier, wasn't he? And then he came back. I think bringing him back to the squad has been quite good. and the likes of Krupi Jr. I think they've recruited very, very well. So good on Bournemouth, and I think they deserve to be where they are.
100%. Thank you very much. Jordan, can I come to you for the next game? Spurs 2, Brighton 2. How do you feel after that one? Would you take in a point before a ball was kicked? And is it a case now we're just like, we're so close to go ahead twice and a few seconds in the first half to going ahead in front, couldn't do that. And more importantly, just ultimately was staked by Danso, sadly, and we just couldn't quite hold on to that win. So mix of emotions.
Yeah, I think mix of emotions is probably the best way to describe it. It was very, like, I hadn't felt that deflated after a game in a while, probably just because I'd tapped out of how bad we've been, right? But this is probably the best I've seen us play in quite a while. To then what felt like give everything, give 100% and actually play well and still pick up the points is like, as cliche as it sounds, that's the kind of stuff that goes against you when you're down at the bottom, right? It's like the little stuff, it's a Danso mistake, it's a good goal from Ruter. So it's like, it seemed almost destined. It felt like that was the game, right? That was the game that would be the building block and the turning point to actually start getting some results. And you think, a home game, 5:30 on a Saturday, especially, with Maddison back on the bench, there seemed like things were aligning for finally a little bit of good news. And obviously to have that ripped away in, the 94th minute was very, very difficult to take. I think it felt like a loss. As I say, every point's so important right now. It's like, could that last kick of the game be the one that sends us down, right? And obviously nearly then scoring at the end and everything like that. It felt so demoralizing that, as I say, yeah, sort of what you said at the beginning, it is a mixed emotions because at the same time it's demoralizing dropping them 2 points. And it does feel like 2 points dropped instead of 1 earned. But at the same time, I definitely did, not to go, Jason Cundy, but I did see signs that were there. I did see some good stuff. And for once, it felt like we had a little bit of kind of intent and emphasis on the game. So for me, it's all about this next game. It feels like we've been saying this forever, but it felt like there were the 3 points we needed. With West Ham only picking up 1, it's still very much a shootout between us and them. And then obviously we've got to watch what Forest do in the next few as well.
100%, because they've got tough games that could get drawn back in if we're being honest about it. But Jordan, on this game as well, more positive, Xavi Simmons goal and assist, and also Bentancur back who started, Maddison back but didn't get on the pitch. So, do you think things could be headed in the right direction now with De Zerbi in charge? I mean, I know it's a case of is it going to be too little or too late or not, because it looks like we are improving. I know it's only one game, but there are positives, I suppose, to take moving into Wolves.
Yeah, definitely positives. And obviously, as you know, Bentancur's had his, fair share of criticism from all of us, but having that sort of calmness and composure is, especially at this time of the season in the situation that we're in, super, super important. Obviously, having them players come back, but also, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it looks as if Udogi's going to at least miss the Wolves game. So it's like, it always feels like 1 step forward and 2 back, right? It seems like with all the players then coming back, who we're going to lose next, you know what I'm saying? So overall positives, definitely some impactful players coming back into the frame, but it might be too little too late if I'm being completely honest. Yeah.
Thank you for your honesty, Jordan. I appreciate that. Sophie, can I get your thoughts on this game, particularly for Brighton, who were top of the form table before coming into this game, Spurs at the bottom of it. So that would suggest it's not a good result. But do you think they take that in the end, having been behind twice and scoring late in the first half and then late in the second half?
Yeah, I think Brighton would definitely take that because it was looking like Spurs were going to get the win in the end, and they got a good goal at the end. But like I said of Brighton, they've definitely picked up some better results recently. Obviously this is a game they probably do want to win, but I do think that having Spurs were so close to getting a win out of this, I think Brighton should definitely take that as a positive point moving forward, even though they probably would have wanted a win in this game.
100%. Sophie, thank you very much. Next game, of course, I'm going to go to Charles versus United fans. It ended Chelsea 0, Man United 1. So, Charles, give me your thoughts on this one. I mean, Chelsea had some big chances in the game that they couldn't take. Do you think, though, you deserved the win in the end and a clean sheet to go with it?
Another very, very poor quality game from both teams. I don't think Chelsea deserved the win. I wouldn't have been upset if we drew the game because we created, I think, like two clear-cut chances, but ultimately Chelsea weren't good enough and didn't have enough quality to actually get the win. I think from our perspective, we actually played very well defensively. I think who was it that started at the back? It was Mazraoui and Heaven, because obviously we had a few injuries, and I think the pair of them did really well, especially Aiden Heaven. I think that's a player who is actually one for the future. Hasn't really had as many minutes as he probably should have this season with the lack of games that we've played, but every time he does play, he performs very, very well. And I also think the likes of Kobe in midfield they controlled the ball, they controlled the game quite well. In terms of Chelsea, I just think Chelsea weren't brave enough on the ball. They didn't have enough quality on the ball, and obviously in the final third, they couldn't really put their chances away. I think they probably had one or two half chances with the lap, but their bigger players, the likes of Caicedo or Enzo and Palmer, probably hid. I wouldn't say they hid in the game, but they just didn't show the quality that we have seen them show in the past. So ultimately, a 1-0 was probably a fair result.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Do appreciate it, Charles. Ollie, if I come to you as an outsider, your thoughts on this game? Another defeat for Chelsea in poor form. United, getting a key win on the road.
Yeah, I mean Chelsea had their chances to get a goal, and they just can't take their chances. I think, as Charles says, I think Man United were very good defensively. I think they they are a much organised side, but that's why Man United are in the position they are after even such a poor start to the season, where they didn't look very good, but all considering that, they are in the position they are now, which is really impressive, I think. But yeah, as from a Chelsea perspective, you just got to be gutted really, and just think, how are we not scoring some of these chances, and how we just, they're creating things, but they're not putting anything away. And I think there seems to be a lot. I mean, we'll get on to Rafinha and everything like that, but there's a lot into what's going in with the squad, and the players just don't look like they're up for it half the time. I think some of them just look unbothered, and they don't look like they want to win games, and they don't have anything that's going for them. I think, ever since they started losing a couple of games, it just didn't look the same under Rafinha at all. And this is another one where they've made some chances, yeah, for sure, but they haven't put them away, and then they've conceded a chance and they've lost another game. And that's not on. I think if I was a Chelsea fan, I'd be really gutted with the lack of effort and the lack of wanting to win that's going on with a lot involved in the club at the moment. I think it is a bit sad to see with Chelsea, because they were in a good position to fight for Champions League, and that's faded away now. I'm afraid that I don't think there's any chance of that now, unless something special happens at the end of the season. But they've got a couple of toughish games coming up, and I don't see them winning enough to be able to get anywhere near that, and they're going to be desperately fighting for Europe now. And I think that has affected the players massively, and hence why they keep getting these kind of results, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you very much. Next game then, Nottingham Forest 4, Burnley 1. John, I'll start with you again on this one. I don't know about you, but I saw Burnley go 1-0 up, and they were leading 1-0 at half-time, and I had no hope in Burnley, with all respect, before the ball was kicked. But the longer the game on, I got more involved. I was thinking, oh, come on, then, at least, even if they can concede and still get a draw, but again, it's the hope that kills, isn't it? Conceding 4, and getting smashed in the end, and to the point where I thought they could get something from it.
Yeah, it just felt so Spursy that it's a Gibbs White hat trick as well. Like, if anyone had to score a hat, like, it had to be him. With all the transfer saga going on in the summer. But yeah, listen, he's clearly a top player. But I was with you fully. I wasn't watching it live, and then I see Burnley 1-0 up. I was like, oh, okay, like there might be a little point here, and these are the kind of, this is always like a give me for Forest. So I thought, if they dropped 2 points from what everyone was sort of seeing as a guaranteed 3, would be massive for us. But then obviously didn't quite work out that way. But yeah, Forest, obviously, as I said, them and West Ham are really the guys that we need to be watching, and the results that we are looking for every week now. So hopefully that run of form does sort of start to peter out a little bit.
100%, totally agree with that, Jordan. Thank you very much. Sophie, can I come back to you for Burnley? Of course, again, since have been relegated, but have had a really miserable season, and it kind of, it's not your season, and it's not your day, don't you? You go 1-0 up, play very well, and not only do you throw the game away and go from 3 points to 0, but in the end, you come out of it having lost by 3 goals and a 4-1 defeat.
Yeah, I mean that score is quite big, isn't it? I mean 4-1. I mean fair play to Forest, but for Burnley as well, as you said, they were winning, and you do think yourself like, can they hold on? And then obviously, fortunately, they can't, and they have obviously been relegated. But yeah, I think for Burnley, they've just really struggled this season since coming up, and obviously Forest, that was such a big win for them, and obviously they seem to be coming out of the relegation bit now and seem fairly comfortable at the moment. So yeah, that result really surprised me actually. I thought it would have been a bit more closer.
Absolutely that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's move on then to the next game after this one, because ultimately Forest winning that one quite comfortably in the end. So there's not too much more to add. This one was a big one. Lots of goals and a thriller at Villa Park. Aston Villa 4, Sunderland 3. Charles, a couple of times tonight you made very key points about certain games at points that have been boring, have been like a typical Premier League game in terms of, you're right, very cagey, very difficult. This one a little bit more interesting for you. It was, definitely lots of goals scored in this one. What did you make of it?
Yeah, much more like a game I would like to watch. Back and forth, load of goals. I think it was 3-1 Villa at one point, and then Sunderland brought it back to 3-3, and then obviously I think Tammy Abraham gets a last-minute winner. In terms of Champions League football for next season for Villa, I think that put them in a very, very good position. I think if they were to drop points, then you would have had the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea kind of looking over their shoulders. And I also think it kind of helps them with their Europa League ventures. I think it kind of allows them to rest a little bit in terms of squad-wise, in terms of the remaining games that they have left, because they have a big Europa League semi-final against Forest, don't they? So they can kind of look forward to those a little bit more than they would look forward to their Premier League games. I know it definitely takes a lot more out of you when you're playing another English club in Europe. So I think the fact that they've kind of secured themselves with those 3 points is actually very, very vital for them.
100%. Thank you, Charles, very much. Ollie, can I come to you, because Sunderland had a huge opportunity to go 4-3 up that they should have taken in on goal, nobody around, they just couldn't quite convert, and then seconds later, less than a minute, Villa go down the other end and win it. So although Sunderland were 3-1 behind, as Charles rightly mentions, they had a huge opportunity to go 4-3 up, and then they've lost it themselves 4-3. So that must really hurt. They probably accepted it after being 3-1 down, but to bring it right back, and they could have got all 3, to come away with nothing. They've got to be disappointed with that, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean that's payback for when they beat us 3-2 at Stadium Light, really, isn't it? At the end of the day, no, it's such a. I think that is, as I said earlier, that is the joys of being a football fan. These things unfortunately do happen, and they had chances to fully establish a comeback, and they were in the driving seat. They were fully in control there, and Aston Villa go up the other end and they score, and that's unfortunately what Sunderland had to deal with. They made a good effort to come back to it after the game looked like it was dead and buried, and also they're away from home, which always makes it harder to make a comeback. You don't see many comebacks away from home like that in that kind of fashion, but they did well to get back into it, and it was just unfortunate that they weren't, they came away with nothing at the end of the day. But I think that will hurt their motivation going forward a little bit for Sunderland, because that is quite hard to kind of come back from and work on next time. But I think that for them personally, Sunderland, they're in a good position still. It's not the end of the world. A bit like our result yesterday, really. It's not the end of the world for Sunderland. They're still in it. They're still having a lot of aspirations at the moment. It's just obviously unfortunate that they can go and get the 3 points. But Villa are Villa, and that's why Villa are in the position they are now, because they do get these kind of goals. They come in clutch. They have the right players for the right kind of abilities, such as nicking these goals like Abraham seems to do, and obviously Watkins is scoring at the moment. And they got Rodgers, who weaves in between players, which I think is a nifty kind of ability that not many teams have. So that is why Aston Villa win these sort of games at the end of the day. And I think, you've got to applaud Sunderland for, making a comeback, even though they didn't get rewarded with anything.
Exactly that, but it was action-packed. Thank you very much. Next game then, Everton 1, Liverpool 2. Sophie, I want to give this one to you. Huge result, isn't it, for Liverpool? Slot in particular, and the whole Liverpool team ultimately been under a lot of pressure, but always I think a win in a Merseyside derby is going to relieve massive pressure on you, and a late goal from Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to end 1-1, which I was thinking that would be good for Everton. But I think Liverpool needed to win this. I mean, Liverpool have really struggled this season. And obviously, I mean, they still could get top 4, but obviously they needed to get up that table. And obviously, always great to win in these type of games. And yeah, I think Liverpool had to win this game, to be honest, because I know they're quite close to Everton as well on the table. But yeah, a great goal at the end. And yeah, Liverpool do nick it, but honestly, you definitely would take that, and it's going to really matter at the end of the season if they do get top 4, if they finish 5th or 6th, whatever they finish. They do want to probably try and finish 4th, and it's quite close now. Obviously, Villa as well got in that win, so yeah, that was a really big win for Liverpool.
Thank you very much. Jordan, can I bring you in on this one? I mean, it's a massive one, Merseyside derby, and at one point I thought, okay, Everton are going to win this, and then then Liverpool in the end winning it. So, yeah, talk to me about the importance of the result ultimately for Liverpool, but also for Everton. It's taken a bit of a dent in their European hopes. I'm thinking not just the opportunity missed to get 0 points, but which they ended up with, but the fact in terms of confidence maybe as well after losing a derby.
Yeah, but I think that second point is probably just as big as the first in terms of, we know how important these derbies are across the country, regardless of the team. But obviously, Merseyside derby being in such a tight-knit city anyway, always seems to have a bigger effect on, either team, no matter the result. Always seemed like it's a good kickstarter for whoever wins, and often seems a time that it does cause some heads to drop in and around the city, but also the players and sort of the managers and the team itself seems to usually be followed by a Merseyside derby loss, by a little bit of a bad run in form, and it's sort of a really good time to have a big derby like that if you win it, to really push on for the last few games of the season. Obviously, both teams sort of chasing Europe. Obviously, Liverpool more likely in the Champions League, but Everton they're only 2 points off of Bournemouth now anyway, with a game in hand. So it's really still up in the air about who gets these spots now that there are 7. But given the fact of how important this derby is to everyone in the city, it seems like it could definitely give a little bit of a stepping stone for Liverpool to have a good run in. Obviously, they've had struggles all season, both on and off the pitch, of course, but you'd sort of back them to use as a little bit of momentum to really push on and sort of secure their spot in the European position.
That, totally agree. Thank you very much. Big one then, Sophie, I'll come to you, and it's a scoreline you'll not want to talk about, so I do apologise. City 2, Arsenal 1, meaning it's all to play for in the title race, and City have since won, which we'll get onto in just a bit. Talk to me your thoughts on this one in terms of the whole performance, the way that Mikel Arteta set up, because I looked at that, and although it's not the result you want, and it looks like throwing it away, you did create some big chances in this game that just weren't quite converted, particularly at the end. Kai Havertz got a score, hasn't he?
Yeah, that chance was probably the best chance you're ever going to get in a game like that. I mean, against Man City, you probably aren't going to have so many, but we did actually have quite a few. I know Eze hit the post as well. But yeah, the lineup was quite attacking, which I was surprised at, because Arteta does usually go quite defensive, and I thought he would want to maybe draw this game, but he actually went with the team to win it. So, yeah, I think Arsenal actually played good. Like in recent games, we've not been great. We've been just a bit defensive, passing backwards and stuff like that. So, that was a much better performance. But ultimately, results is what matters if you do want to win the league. So, yeah, it's a tough one now. We have put ourselves in this position, to be honest, and if we'd have beaten Bournemouth, if we'd have beaten, Wolves, these other teams, we would be in a better position. So I think if we do lose the league, it won't be to Man City, it will be to the other teams. But we just have to just win all of our games now, and obviously goal difference is going to be a big thing in this, and we don't usually score a lot of goals. We have been winning games like 1-0, 2-1. So yeah, I am nervous for these remaining games we have, and I think Man City do seem really good at the moment. Holland's in form, and yeah, they seem a lot better than maybe us in the attack. So I'm nervous to see how we're going to do in these next 5 games, but yeah, we'll have to just see what happens now.
Thank you very much. Ollie, what are you going to say? You've got anything to say about this one? Huge game at the top, and City have won, which, I mean, for neutrals, it makes it incredibly interesting come the end of the season. But Arsenal really needed to not lose that, didn't they? Yeah, now they've lost. They're in a bit of trouble in terms of it gets in their head, isn't it? Yeah, we're going to throw it away again.
Yeah, I think it's a massive killer for Arsenal, really, and where they are and where they have been previously. I think it is massive pressure on. I wouldn't want to be any of the players or Mikel Arteta in this kind of situation, because this is pressure on. This is they were in the best position they ever have been to win the league, and obviously it's not over yet, but now they're in this kind of position where any even draw could be the end. And obviously with Man City and the form that they are in, I don't think anyone can see them losing a game or even drawing a game at the moment with the way they are. And they are doing what they usually do in a season, but they had an off season, or so we thought, for a lot of the season. And unfortunately for Arsenal, their bad form has come at a really bad time, and it's even worse because every loss feels 100 times worse than it should do. And I think that I was watching them thinking, this isn't the Arsenal that we usually watch. I was watching Man City be a much better side, and Arsenal were being that side they were a few years ago, where Man City looks so much better. And with the players that Arsenal got, you think this shouldn't be happening to them, really. But they've let it happen to themselves, unfortunately. And this is what happens when you don't put all these chances away. You sit back and you don't go for it. Arsenal didn't look like they wanted it. Man City did. It's as simple as that, unfortunately. But hopefully Arsenal can get back into swing of things quickly. And also, while they're focusing on the Champions League as well, get that out of the way as quickly as possible, and just make sure they can focus on getting this league title secured.
100%. I agree with that there. Thank you very much. Next one then, Jordan, Palace 0, West Ham 0 on the Monday night. Would you say in the end that that's a good result? Because ultimately, Palace, on the beers in the week, and I was a bit worried about how this game would go. I was thinking they're going to roll over, unintentionally, of course, for West Ham. But I think a draw would probably take in the end, to be fair. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. As you said, Palace with European hopes and dreams still very much alive. So you thought, and I think they did rest. I don't think Mateta started. I don't think Sarr started. I think Wharton was injured. Lacroix was maybe just come back or come off in the week. So there's definitely some rumors that that it's going to be a heavily rested team, and for what it's worth, it sort of was, right. I guess from a Tottenham point of view, definitely, I would have taken a draw at the beginning there. I thought if there was a game that West Ham could probably really capitalise, it probably would be on this game, considering all the factors, of course. But yeah, I think all teams, I think it's probably West Ham would have wanted the 3 points, but I'm pretty sure Palace would be happy with a draw, and obviously most teams around West Ham, be it us, Leeds, and Forest, are probably happy with that draw from their point of view too.
100% agree with that. Thank you very much. Ollie, can I ask you about this game? I mean, what were your thoughts on this one? Again, no goals in it. It was cagey, nothing really about it. And do you agree with me that West Ham, it appeared anyway, set up for the draw and they got that in the end?
Yeah, I think they did, because when I was watching it, I was expecting the game to be quite to and fro and, looking to get a winner. But I think in West Ham's head, it was, we do not want to lose this game from what it was looking like. It was, they had some chances, but they didn't have enough as I thought they would anyway. They looked like they wanted to just, make sure they got a point on the board and just, were happy with that, which is fair enough. I think, it's not a bad result for them for sure. Better than nothing. Better than getting nothing from the game, I think. But it's just obviously, I think for them, they probably would rather, them get that win and, be closer to survival. But with the position that they are in, I think any point at all is vital. And Palace, a bit like Fulham, really, are quite inconsistent with their form, and they will win some games, they will lose some games, and they can win and lose at any time. They don't go on streaks of having really good form. They do just lose some games. So you don't know what Palace side you're facing here. And I think West Ham are going with this, like, they need to just get this point, be a bit closer, and focus on the next game. But I think they did. I think they did well to keep a draw. I don't think they let Palace in too many times. And I think they would have been happy with that performance. It wasn't a bad performance for them at all. I think obviously Palace are focusing on the Conference League a little bit more, so they're a little bit probably distracted by that, and they're pretty much safe now, so it's not much of a concern for them. But I think West Ham, decent result, go on to the next game, try and get a win.
Ollie, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you. If we move then into other games, so we've got Brighton 3, Chelsea 0. We move into the midweek core games and we get on to what happened with Liam Rosenior. If you have seen, maybe been living under a rock or you have seen it, either way, I will tell you that he has been sacked. We'll get onto that shortly. But big thing, Brighton won by 3 goals. Sophie, can I start with you? Brighton, huge, and they're on a really good run, aren't they, right now, under Fabian Herzler? We'll focus on Brighton first.
Yeah, they're in a really good place at the minute, and I know Chelsea have been struggling and have been going through a bit of a difficult time, but to score 3 goals is really important for them, and like I said, they're actually doing pretty good this season and they're on a good run, so yeah, that is a massive win for Brighton.
Absolutely, it's huge. And Sophie, how good do you think Carlos Baleba was? Because he struggled, I think, this year, and it just looked back to his former best, really, in this game. I just thought he was so much better.
Yeah, he definitely was back to himself, and I think he was a really big player for sure. He's definitely improving.
Absolutely, that was a big one for Baleba. Charles, can I come to you though for Chelsea? I mean, catastrophic, isn't it? In the end result, everything they seemed to do went wrong, and they even got away with a couple of things as well. Mistake from Sanchez at the back. I remember early on they did get away with, but ultimately on paper it couldn't have been much worse, could it, for Chelsea? And last 4 games now they've lost against Brighton. What's going wrong?
Yeah, it was probably their worst performance out of this run that they've been on. I think it's 5 games in a row that they've lost. Haven't scored a goal. Obviously they haven't kept a clean sheet. Liam or Rosenior tried to go to a 5 at the back, just didn't work at all. The players, I think you can kind of tell towards the end, the players kind of it's a respect thing. Well, I know they have respect for the ball, but they don't really have respect for the manager. Either it's that, but they just didn't they didn't buy into what he's probably trying to sell to them. I've seen reports today that a player referred to him as a supply teacher. So just little things like that. And then by the end of it, when they're on the pitch and the fans are kind of clapping them, not really clapping them off, but to be fair, they were kind of berating them, if anything. And then you got the likes of Enzo Fernandez just standing there watching the fans for a good 5 minutes, whilst everyone's kind of coming off. That's meant to be your club vice captain. So I just think it was, in terms of from the players to the manager, there was a big disconnect. And then there's bigger problems with Chelsea, as probably Chelsea fans will tell you. It's not just the manager's probably just a puppet there, but in terms of the board and the sporting director, there's a lot of problems going on at Chelsea.
Lost me audio then. There we go. Got there in the end. Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of problems at Chelsea. I do totally agree. That leads us on to then Liam Rosenior. I mean, you're right, I think, to say it with the puppet, but he has been sacked. Ollie, I know you've got a lot to say, so go for it. I'm not going to stop you. Say what you want to say for however long. Yeah, talk to me about Liam Rosenior, because on this podcast, I think we've been mainly positive. In particular, Louis, West Ham fan, has spoken very highly of him. So I do want to hear his thoughts in the coming weeks as well, when he's back, about his thoughts on Rosenior being sacked. But you spoke highly about him. What's the thinking now? Has he been thrown under the bus by a failing Chelsea regime, and now he's gone? To the sporting directors have to follow, and the shambles that is upstairs to end the circus?
Yeah, it literally is. As Charles says, he is just a puppet of what is actually going on at Chelsea. You know, I'm not saying he's completely innocent, because you know he does come across as not the most favourable person in the world, if I'm honest, with some of the comments he makes, and I think he has to be accountable for some of the things he has been saying. And I think, you know, it's good to be honest, but I think sometimes I don't think his delivery is quite right in certain circumstances, and you know that makes sense. But there is, I think, you know, I'm seeing what the players are like, and they are just, you know, they are absolutely useless in what they're doing at the moment. They have no clue, and that isn't down to the manager. Maresca was a brilliant manager, and he got completely thrown under the bus as well. And this is going to keep happening and happening for Chelsea. Nothing's going to change until something happens at the top. They are signing players left, right, and centre that have nothing to do with the system or squad that they are using. They are signing as many players as they can, just, I don't know why, just because they want to and just because they can. And it is getting them nowhere, because none of these players have anything to do with what they are trying to achieve in you know, their system and what they are, you know, where they are in anything. They have no aspirations with the players they are signing. You know, Alejandro Garnacho, I don't know why he was signed. I don't know why they've signed Jamie Gittins. It's all just pointless. And I don't ever understand why they have this recruitment, because it's making some of these players that they're signing fail. They are not playing many players that have been signed before 2022, really. They're playing Fofana and Cucurella. I think they're like some of the only players they've signed before, you know, before kind of the last couple of seasons. The rest of them have been this season or last season signed. And I just don't get it. I don't understand it at all. But this cycle is going to keep going and keep going until they decide to stick with a squad, develop some of their players in their amazing youth academy that many other teams would be absolutely bragging about, and they, you know, they stick with a manager and stick with a project. Arsenal were awful before they stuck with Arteta and decided to go with a project. Man City weren't even that great until they stuck with Guardiola. They need to just stick with a manager, sign the players the manager wants, and unfortunately have to go through hell until they get back to the top. Nothing's going to change until that happens.
I do appreciate it. Thank you for kicking us off on the Liam Rosenior chat. Thank you. Charles, I come to you. You said there about Rosenior being a puppet. I think you're spot on about that. Where do you think the problems lie at Chelsea? Because it goes further, doesn't it, probably, than just Rosenior, or some would say it goes further than just the players?
Yeah, I think Rosenior was never going to succeed, so I don't think he can get a lot of the blame for what kind of happened. From once so Enzo came out and he's saying that the players weren't really sure about why Maresca got sacked. So you have a squad that are kind of behind the manager, behind his philosophy. Actually, I know it was Club World Cup, which I don't think is a actual trophy, but they've obviously won a trophy in the summer. So these players have kind of got used to winning, and then you got your board just randomly sacking that manager. I think that caused a lot of upstir within the squad. And then in terms of the actual board, I think it's all fresh in terms of they're all inexperienced in running a football club, inexperienced in winning. Chelsea are a club where, if you were to ask me in a 5-year period, what do I think of Chelsea? I would always say at least once every 4 or 5 years, Chelsea are going to win a league title. And I was thinking about it the other day. Chelsea haven't won a league title since, was it 16-17? Which is a long, long time for Chelsea. The Chelsea I grew up on are always winning something, whether it's a league title, whether it's the Champions League or Europa League, they're always winning something. So I think as a Chelsea fan, you have a lot of rights to kind of be upset with this whole Blue Co thing, when the way they've kind of come into the club and they've tried this new structure. I think it's failed miserably.
It's not going very well at all for Rosenior. Thank you very much. Jordan, you got anything to add on Rosenior? I mean, of course, the Spurs fan, you'll be thinking, come on a minute, we've got far more problems at Spurs, but Chelsea not doing too great themselves. I mean, Rosenior, was that just the wrong appointment from day one and just wasted time, really?
Yeah, I feel like you got to feel sorry for him a little bit. It was a young, promising coach doing well out in Strasbourg, sort of been brought into Chelsea to fill a gap and to fill a hole by what is his boss, I guess, in Blue Co and Clear Lake or whatever it is. So I feel like because I know there was like some sort of at least attempted sort of walk out with Strasbourg and Chelsea, sort of complaining about the multi-club ownership and stuff like that. But seeing multi-club ownership isn't a new thing, like especially with Chelsea, you've always had sister clubs and feeder clubs and stuff like that. But it seems more now that they're making these sort of grandiose decisions that are affecting more than one club, and it isn't just affecting, a group of players or anything like that. And what seems to be happening now is, you've brought in a young manager that was promising at Strasbourg and doing well and had a core that clearly respected him and was earning his stripes managerial, sort of thrown him in at the deep end. And you sort of got to hope that doesn't affect him, long-term career-wise too much. This is obviously almost a suicide job for him to take anyway. But I'd say, yeah, the ownership is, like a lot of teams in the Prem, very, very weird, very strange. But this one seems almost weirder than what we've seen in terms of like the fact they're just going to literally take their sister club's manager and sort of throw him in at the deep end. And as I say, hopefully not ruin his career long term, because there's clearly something there. He's clearly got some ideas and some tactical know-how and a brain. But let's just hope that long term he's able to recover, because I think there's definitely a potential manager in there somewhere. I did like his Strasbourg team, so as I say, hopefully it's not ruined it too much, and hopefully they don't have too much of a new manager bounce for when we play them too.
No, exactly that. Jordan, thank you. We don't want that at all. Typical, wouldn't it, of Tottenham to just when thinking, okay, finally we can get a result at Stamford Bridge and go and change managers. Absolutely typical. Jordan, thank you very much. Before we move on from this, on to the remaining 2 games, Sophie, can I ask you about this? And, ultimately, do you think Chelsea are in safe hands as well for the rest of the year? Do you think they've done a right thing? But ultimately, it's never going to be a permanent appointment at this stage. But do you think this is the right call to sack him?
I think when he came in, I didn't really think he would be the guy to get them winning big things. But I do think Chelsea don't really give managers time. They never really give managers a few seasons to see the players they can bring in. So I didn't think it was really going to work long term, but again, I do think they had to move him on. I don't think it was the right move, but I do think with the players they have, they're just not good enough for Chelsea. I think Chelsea needs a bit of a rebuild, and as we said before, Chelsea haven't won the league in such a long time, and for me as well, they were a team growing up where they used to win so much. So I think in a way Chelsea did need to sack him. I don't think they should have ever appointed him, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think they're in a real mess at the minute, and I think this season, I thought they were doing okay last season, and now they should be challenging for the titles. But I just don't think they've got the quality to do that right now. But yeah, I'll be interested to see how they do for the rest of the season. But they do need to find the right manager long term, because they can't just keep changing their managers. They have to sort of stick with a manager, give them a bit of time to bring their own players in.
100%. Thank you, Sophie. If I can stick with you then, Burnley 0, City 1. Of course, an Arsenal fan, you'll be watching that, and you know what it means to go to the top, and it's going to be a horrible few days for you. But do you think that Burnley maybe were a little bit unlucky? And I know they didn't create like loads of clear-cut chances, but it was only 1-0 in the end, and Burnley putting in a real defensive shift.
Yeah, I think that game actually was always going to be a tough one. I mean, Man City are ahead and they're happy with that, and they were always going to try and win this one. But Burnley did defensively, like you said, give it a good go and really tried their best. But ultimately, when you're playing against Man City, it's difficult because they've got like so many great players, especially in the attack. But I know Burnley have gone down, but they did try their best to help Arsenal, and yeah, they did defensively put in a good shift, even though they did concede.
It did in the end. Thank you. Ollie, coming to you. Clinical, wasn't it, from Erling Haaland? And that was the type of goal. I remember the commentator saying at the time that he scored at Borussia Dortmund. I think he's right to say that. It makes it look so easy. And that ultimately hurt Burnley in the 5th minute. And a lot happened as well before the 5th minute. City's huge chance through Cherki that he should take. Huge save from Dubravka. Very good save. Still should be converted with the form that Cherki's in. And Burnley coming close as well. So an action-packed 5 minutes. And that was a killer, wasn't it, for Burnley? City taking the lead then.
Yeah, I think it was going to be whenever Man City scored, that would have been it, really. I think, with how Man City are and how Burnley are in contrast, I think that was the obvious thing. I couldn't see Burnley scoring after Man City did. I think that was dead and buried. But yeah, no, I think it was a really good finish from Haaland there. I think that's the Haaland that Man City have been missing for a couple of months now, and I think it showed that they've missed him for this length of time, since obviously their form had dropped a little bit, and it really does show now he's scoring. They're winning a lot more games, but it's also because they're setting him up with a lot better chances, and that is kind of the ones he wants. We saw him when he was scoring all these goals many over a couple of years he's been at Man City, where he gets set up with this nice little through ball and he loves running to it and he loves doing the rest from there, because he can pick out a finish once he's inside the box and from whatever position and however he does it, and that's what he loves best, and he did what he does best in that in this game. And obviously Man City are absolutely happy with that. They'll go away and they'll be pleased with that 1-0. Doesn't matter whether it's 1-0 or 5-0. They'll come away with those 3 points. I'll be absolutely buzzing with that. On the contrast, Burnley won't be. But that is how it is for them, and sums out their season, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And a win's a win. Like you said, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, pretty or ugly. Can I stick with you, Ollie? Because you're beloved Bournemouth to end. So 2-2 with Leeds. And I bet and you said at the start, and again, I'm sure you're really, really angry about this game, because I don't know about you, I thought you're 3-1 up and denied by the finest of margins. You would have won 3-1, let's be clear. I think if there was no VAR, so that's a real frustration. You just felt that with so much added time, anything could happen, and just couldn't quite hold on. And that should have been 3 points, shouldn't it? It's 2 dropped.
Yeah, it's a shame. I'm happy with the point because I would have taken it before the game, so I can only go from that. I think during the game, yeah, for sure. I think we should have won that. I think Leeds fans were wondering how they got a point. Nothing against any of the decisions, because I think they were perfectly legal and fair play. There was no penalty controversy. The offside was fair enough, close but fair enough. And their last goal was fair enough. Great finish. I think the more thing I was annoyed about was the fact that no one picks up that man coming into the box waiting to shoot. It happened against Arsenal at home when Rice got those 2 goals and no one picked him up. And it happened again, Longstaff, no one there, gets all the time to shoot and he picks it perfectly. I thought Leeds actually were very good. People say because they are wherever they are in the table, 15th, 16th, that they're they're not very good, but they really are. They're really organised in defence. They know how to play against teams. They work teams out. And this is what happens when Farker actually gets some money in the Premier League. He has been treated with some players he actually wants, and this is what happens when you give him money. And Leeds have, they've supplied him with the players, and they've, they're showing what they're about. And I think from a Bournemouth perspective, we played well. We did everything right, apart from a few defensive mistakes leading to their 2 goals. But I can't fault the attacking play. We could have scored more for sure. We should have taken more shots. Yeah, we could have scored more than what we did and won the game. But I'm happy with the performance. There wasn't really anything I can pick out that can say, that wasn't good enough. Many of our fans were going, oh, points not good enough, but we played well and I can't complain. On the contrast, Leeds will be happy with that. And I think they'll go and take that to Saturday and challenge Chelsea, how Chelsea are in. And I think Leeds could get a positive result on Saturday. So this is really positive for them. And they show what they're about. And I think they'll do very well next season.
Absolutely, looking in a good place, Leeds. Ollie, thank you. And to end then, Charles, can I get your thoughts on this game? And again, you're right with what you said earlier about some games. Was this a bit, a bit more interesting? Because the little bits that I tuned into in the second half, I thought it was a bit end to end, and I was like, I kind of like this. Really, didn't really know what was going to happen, and in the end, the point shared.
Yeah. Can I quickly go back to the City Burnley game?
Of course.
That's
yeah.
Right. No, I was just gonna say, I know you guys said City will be happy with the 3 points regardless, but I think Pep and City will be the emotion probably will be relief, if anything, because after watching the game, City could have scored at least 5-6 goals, and goal difference is very, very important in this title race. I think obviously they get a goal very early on, and let me know if you agree with me. After that, I'm thinking, it's going to be a stat pad session where Haaland might get a hat trick or Shirky might get a couple. But I think it's not often where I would agree with a commentator saying there's a bit of complacency, because I always think a team want to win and want to do well. But within the final third, there was a lot of complacency. I think they were probably taking one too many passes. They weren't as clinical as they probably should have been. And I think these are the type of results where City have actually dropped points, because Burnley did have a few chances themselves, especially early on, and towards the end they had a late corner to a point where they could have easily drawn the game, but City did deal with it defensively. But as I was saying, these are the type of games where, like Forest at home, Forest probably have 5 or 6 chances and they end up getting 2 goals, and City are dropping points. So I think these are the type of games where City have to start killing the game off if they want to win this league title. And this is the reason why I actually think both teams are still capable of dropping points. I don't think it's going to be a straight foot race where both of them are just going to win every single game from here on out. I think both teams have performances in them, or a lapse of concentration where they are still going to drop points. So I think we do have a very, very interesting title race set up for us.
We certainly do. And what do you think as well about, just briefly, on the Bournemouth and Leeds?
Yeah, Bournemouth will probably be upset. I think they scored very, very late, didn't they? In terms of Bournemouth's the 2-1 goal, and then Leeds managed to get a last-minute equaliser. So Bournemouth will be quite upset with one point when you're obviously leading late. Always feels like you've lost the game, but they're still in a good position. I think it's probably a much better point for Leeds in terms of that relegation scrap. I think it probably confirms that they're safe now. I think our Leeds on 40 points. I think they hit the 40-point mark, so they're probably safe now. But in terms of Bournemouth, I don't think it's that big of a deal, the fact that they've dropped 2 points late on.
Thank you, Charles, very much. And final question, actually, just fit one more in. I'll give to you, Jordan, if that's okay. Have you been impressed with Bournemouth under Iraola, how well they've done, particularly since losing Semenya in January? It's typical, isn't it? They were struggling around about where we were at one point, not too far away, and they beat us through a late goal through Semenya in his last game, and they've kind of really never looked back since then, Bournemouth. They've had blips, don't get me wrong, but they've definitely looked a lot stronger, particularly recently. And with, of course, Fulham. So, yeah, what have you made of them, really? They seem to proper turn the corner, unbeaten in so many. Yes, a lot of them have been draws, but they seem a tough team to beat.
Yeah, definitely. Really, really hard to beat. And I think that's, the key to not just survival, but, actually being a good, solid Premier League team too. If you're tough to beat, you're always going to be, you're always there to pick up points. I think what Charles said earlier about, replacing Kirkes, and obviously with Semenyo leaving and then bringing in Ryan, who I think is super, super talented as well. Obviously, Krupi hitting form. A lot of people knew about him, obviously, beforehand, but by the same token, I think a lot of people didn't know about him beforehand. So seeing him come in and really hit the ground running, I think there was something where he had the most goals for a debut season by a teenager, only bar Robbie Keane or something. So it was some sort of really good record, and obviously you sort of think that they keep hold of him for at least another until January or at least the next summer. But it'll be interesting how they then go with Marco Rose. Obviously looks like they're going to be losing Senesi as well. But if they've then got that recruitment structure in place where they can replace players in the aggregate or, like for like, then I think they're going to be a very good team to watch next year too, especially if they can get Euro, would it be Conference probably, or if not Europa. But yeah, super really impressed with them this season. And it's nice to see a different team sort of really breaking into that sort of European places, definitely.
100%. Jordan, thank you very much. I think that wraps us up nicely for this episode of Scarfey Talks Premier League. A lot of games there, 13 that we managed to get in. So thank you very, very much. And in terms of where we can hear from us next, we've got the 34 preview show, which is Friday night, 7:10 p.m. It'll be hosted actually by someone else, in Martin Frank, who stepped in for me before. I've got college deadline Friday, so he's kindly, massive thanks. He's been a real legend and hosting in my absence. So we split into two, so it'll be previewing Game Week 34. Again, should be a big one. Let's go through though and see where you can find my guests on social media. Thank you to all four. It's been amazing. Thank you all for their time. Ollie, firstly, thank you very, very much. Where can people follow you and talk to people as well about Simply AFCB?
Yeah, thank you once again. It's nice to be back on. I've really enjoyed this one. It was nice to have a group of good people doing it as well with me, which I really enjoyed. I'm on Simply AFCB on X, just as it's listed right there. I just post all things Bournemouth. I tried to do as many graphics as I can because I am a student graphic designer, but I haven't actually had the time recently, just as I haven't had the chance to come on really. But no, I've really enjoyed this one. It's been absolutely fantastic, so thank you ever so much for having me on it once again.
No, thank you. You're always welcome. So Ollie, thank you very much. Do appreciate it. Jordan, thank you very much for coming on. Solid debut, never in doubt. There's a reason that you're a regular as well on Scarfey Spurs Talk. Where can people follow you on the socials? Thank you, mate.
Yeah, socials mainly on Twitter for Geordie J there. Obviously, check me out. Doing some stuff with some different brands, different channels. Doing some stuff for Spurs Express, Lily White Lab, Spurs Web. So sort of all over Tottenham socials, and obviously that's my personal one there. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Again, thank you for having me on, mate. Really enjoyed that.
No worries. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work as well, doing a lot around the Spurs community. Keep it up, Jordan. Only ways up for sure with you. Thank you very, very much. Sophie, really appreciate your time. Thank you. Where can people follow you on your socials and also your channel, Gooner Gossip TV, which, you've been kind enough to invite me several times. I've been on when Tottenham played Arsenal. So thank you for always having me.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you again for inviting me on today, and I really had a great time with you all. And yeah, obviously I basically chat about Arsenal on my YouTube channel, Gonna Gossip TV. If anyone wants to check it out, that's where you can find me.
Great stuff. Thank you very much for your time. And talking of solid debuts, look no further. Charles, it was fantastic to have you on. You were excellent, and you're always welcome back as well. Where can people follow you on the socials?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, really enjoyed that. On socials, it would be DaPunditTree, so as spelled on the screen. So that would be TikTok, X, Snapchat, if anyone uses that. Mainly talking Premier League stuff, Man United pre-game analysis, post-game analysis, and in the meantime doing some freelance stuff. So any opportunities, I'm keen to jump on as well.
I love that. Great stuff. Thank you. And just by the name as well, let me tell you, do talk a lot more sense than the majority, if not all the pundits do on TV when it comes to football. So absolutely no doubt there. You definitely do. Let me tell you that. Some of the stuff you come out with, you can just tell when someone hasn't watched the game or hardly interested in the club. Put it put it that way, put it nicely. But thank you very much all for coming on this episode. Do check us out on social media at Scarfey Talks Premier League, or on X, on Instagram. Be on TikTok as well soon. So thank you very much. Subscribe if you're listening on YouTube if you're new. Really appreciate all the support. It's a new podcast as well. We've branched away. So thank you very much. Until next time, really appreciate all the support. Thank you, and wish all your club the